All right, everybody. I've got another very special guest for everybody today. Make sure to welcome Hound to the show. Welcome, Fel.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So how's everything going on your end right now?
It's been all right. I've actually been having kind of a bad luck kind of a week. I strained my wrists, so I couldn't really been drawing for the last couple of weeks, and then I decided to get an outdoor hobby. I decided to try longboarding, and within 10 minutes, I rolled my ankle. So I've been kind of a sitting duck for the last week or so, but I'm happy to have something to do now, which is kind of talk to people and be on your show and just do something.
I still have a bone that didn't heal properly on my foot from skateboarding. This is years ago when I was skinnier and younger. And it literally, if you look on my foot, there's like a bump where the bone just broke and never healed back correctly. Luckily, it's not like an important bone that does something. It's just one of those ones that's there.
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm investing in like 20 pounds of protective gear next time, just so I don't break something.
That is one of those things I miss skateboarding. I used to have so much fun. I never did longboarding, though. I never got into that.
Yeah, I heard longboarding was more stable than skateboarding, so I wanted to try on a longboard first to see if I can just even like go in a straight line.
I knew guys that did that, but they would go down these hills, and like I live in a smallish town, or probably a biggish town actually, but I'm in central New York, so it's hilly everywhere. But they would go down these giant hills into intersections, and I was just like, yeah, that's a little too extreme for me.
Yeah, I don't think I can do anything that extreme. I know I've been watching these videos of like people doing longboard dancing, and they look so graceful. I don't think I can do that, but it'd just be something that looks fun to do, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of derailed. We're talking about comics, now we're talking about skateboarding.
Oh, good. Skateboarding is another passion of mine. I used to love doing it, and I still watch videos and everything. It's kind of funny you brought it up.
Yeah.
So this is a comic book show. So let's start, Fel, with where we start all of our new guests, your origin story. What got you into comics, and then what eventually got you to the point where you're like, I want to make some of these things?
So when I was a kid, I really, really liked Kevin and Hobbes. I owned like almost all the volumes of it, and it's just, I don't know, I really liked, I guess, graphic mediums. I liked to scribble a lot as a kid, and then when I got a little older, I guess, when I was in high school, I got, I know it's a bit late, but I really got into the show Gargoyles, like Disney's Gargoyles.
Okay, yeah.
You know, like the animated show, yeah. And like I was so into it, and then I found out that they had a season 3, but it was canceled, but they continued it in the comics. And so I like went on this long journey trying to find those Gargoyles comics. And on my journey, I went to a lot of comic book shops, and I think just trying to find those books, I got exposed to a bunch of other cool comic books. So I picked up stuff like Saga. I picked up Batwoman Elegy, Walking Dead, bunch of other stuff. And I think just reading that, I was starting to get really invested in the comics. I think especially Batwoman Elegy, like it just blew my mind away. I don't know, have you seen it or read it?
No, I haven't heard of this one.
Okay, yeah. So it was written by Greg Rucka, drawn by J.H. Williams, who did the recent Echolands comics, and his art just like blows my mind away. He does like really, really like cool, surreal layouts, and just stuff that I've never really seen in comics before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was kind of the moment I really fell in love with the medium and realized the kind of potential it had, because it just looks so cool. And yeah, I will say that for the most part of my life, I wasn't really an artist, to be honest. I considered myself more of a writer. I like to write short stories. I like to write poetry. And then it wasn't until I got into college when I got like really, really into comics. And I realized at that point, you know, as a broke college student, I didn't really have a lot of money. So it was like, I can't afford to pay someone to draw all my ideas for me. But I did have some time. So I was like, I guess I'll just teach myself how to draw. And yeah, a couple of years later, that's where we are now.
That's awesome. I wish I had that courage when I was younger. It wasn't until I hit like 28, 29 where I was just like, I've been writing for a long time. Maybe I should try like doing something with it.
Oh, are you writing anything
But
cool now, or?
much like your college days, I'm very broke, so I am writing, but it's not, it's in the middle of it's in a stasis right now until I can find money because I can't
There,
draw.
I mean, if it's something you're into, I will say it's never too late to start. When I
Yeah.
was like 20 something, I know it's 20 is young, but when I was 20 and I was seeing like all these Tumblr artists who are like 14 making comics, I'm like, wow, I'm such a late bloomer. But
I bought one of these guys a while, and I've been messing around with it. One of these draw pads,
ooh, very nice.
and I've been like just messing around with it, but I'm still like learning all that stuff, and
No,
still
really
just
cool.
not willing to show anybody.
Yeah.
But back to you. So, what was the first idea that you really put together and drew and put out there?
So I think 2013 was when I started really getting into comics and trying to draw it. I was like back then I was drawing kind of shitty looking short comics, and I was very brave back then because I actually posted them to Reddit and they looked terrible. And Reddit isn't really a kind place for terrible looking comics.
No.
Yeah, so I thought I was very brave back then, but at some point I realized that these comics weren't really great looking. So I think it wasn't until like 2017-ish when I made my first full-length one-shot that I still drew by hand in a sketchbook. It didn't look very good. It was called Captain Fix-It. But yeah, at that point I realized I liked making comics, but I needed to really hone my skills before I could really post them online again. And I think what I consider my debut comic would be Do You Believe in an Afterlife, which was like a 40-page comic zine. It was half comics and half prose because at that point I had taken like a year-long break to just do illustration to try to practice my skills more before I went back into sequential art. And with Do You Believe in an Afterlife, like I wasn't super confident doing something fully sequential again. So I filled like half the story with prose and just like practiced drawing the comic portions, but just less of it. And then, yeah, I think that would probably be what I considered my debut comics work.
Did you, looking at your art station, did you have an influence through like video games, especially like Japanese role playing games?
I had a huge influence from video games.
There you go.
Except I surprisingly haven't played a lot of JRPGs, except for maybe like the latest Fire Emblem game. I do like RPGs though, but mostly like Mass Effect and Dragon Age and stuff like that.
It's funny. I get a real sense of like Final Fantasy especially from your the women you have here, the knights on the top.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of fantasy. I'm a big fan of armors. And while I haven't really played a lot of the Final Fantasy games, I do like the aesthetic. And I'm a big fan of like the Bloodborne aesthetics as well. So that's probably where a pretty huge influence comes from.
Yeah, who makes Bloodborne?
It's like From Software.
From Software.
Yeah.
Whoever is in charge of art at From Software needs all the awards because I remember the first time I was working at a GameStop and we got the art book for Dark Souls 2 maybe, and I was just like flipping through it because I was into comics and art and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just loved the visual style they had for that game. Hate the game because I'm bad at it and I get angry very easy.
Yeah.
But I love the visual style of it.
Oh, I know. Like I'm in the same boat. I don't think I've made it like I got halfway through Dark Souls 1 and that took a lot out of me because I was so bad at it and I kept on dying. And then at one point I just got to a point where like, I had a bunch of humanity, I had a bunch of souls and I was so afraid of losing it, I just stopped playing. but I really enjoyed like this the aesthetics, the armors, the design. It's so good. And like even in their latest like From Software announced the new game Elden Ring. That looks so good. I will probably never play it, but I will be in love with it.
Yeah, and I know people who are good at it, and it like I'm so jealous of it because I'm like, my style is like, I like when you're like at Pokemon level, like just let me like breeze through and have a good time, like make some friends with some animals, and I'm good there. I don't need to be beaten to death by this video game.
I feel you, yeah. This is why I love it when games have story mode, because I am very much a story mode player. I want to know the story and the characters. Or like in Skyrim, where I can just walk around and look at flowers and
Yep.
have a good time.
So, you did, do you believe in afterlife, in an afterlife? Was that something you published, on your own, or did that get published through, somebody else?
No, that was self-published. I pretty much just released it digitally on Gumroad first, and then I printed like a very low print run, I think like 50 copies, and then just sold it off my Gumroad. But yeah.
And what was that book about?
So that was it's like a yeah, it's a I guess a queer romance at the end of the world is the best way to describe it. There's like this world that's being invaded by giant alien robots, and then in the middle of it all, there's a soldier and there's a mechanic, and they fall in love, and the world is ending. And it's cute and romantic, and it's not as depressing as it might sound, because it's actually about how they kind of found hope in each other, even though the world is being invaded by giant alien robots. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like a good time.
Yeah, and they have a motorcycle. They fight the robots with like giant axes. It's kind of a mishmash of ideas.
And was that something you had floating around for a while that you just really wanted to do?
So, it was a long story how that one came to be. I had this longer sci-fi horror series I wanted to do with like giant alien robots invading the Earth, but it was.
I sense a theme.
Yeah, slight theme. But I didn't feel comfortable with my ability at that time to really draw a full miniseries, so I wanted to just shorten everything, and then from that miniseries, I cut out parts of it, and what was left was like this, I guess, love story at the end of the world with giant alien robots. And it initially began as just like an illustration series. I was just kind of drawing these like illustrations with this biker and this soldier who slowly fell in love, and then people, I guess it started to gain some traction, and people were like, oh, is this going to be a comic? Oh, tell me more about these characters. And I guess after hearing that kind of response, I was like, I guess I should make it into some kind of actual story. And that's kind of how I just converted the illustrations into comic format, drew in a couple extra pages, wrote a little bit, and pieced it together. So it's more like a comic zine than an actual comic, but it was fun.
I'm seeing that more and more, even in mainstream stuff, where they kind of add in almost that zine style, where there's. It's funny sometimes as a reader when I'm just like, I just want to sit down with a nice comic, and then you open up and there's a whole page full of dialogue, or not even dialogue, just description, like a book. And I'm like,
yeah,
like you have to be in a time and place for it. But I'm noticing that more and more, so it seems like people are catching on to that.
Yeah, I know one of my friends, Frankie White. He did like Broken Bear, 20 Fists. He released a project called Project Starless Daydream. Very much in this same vein. He called it a narrative zine, but pretty much like each artist drew one page, and then in between it was just like information or like short prose snippets. And I'm a fan of that kind of experimental style. I think it's really cool to see people, doing more with the graphic and literary format. So I'm kind of excited to see more of it.
Yeah, I've been real nerdy about like I said, I'm not. I don't want to sound like I don't like that stuff, because I do, but it's always a time and a place for it sometimes. But I am been getting really nerdy this past like year or two about like panel layout and like the design of the book and everything.
Yeah.
And who was the artist who did Grant Morrison's Wonder Woman Earth 1.
Don't.
And he also did, I'm not going to remember the name, I'm sorry, but he also did Swamp Thing with Scott Snyder. And he just, I believe it's, yeah, he just does this amazing panel layout that like bleeds into the story. That just like, as somebody who's noticing that, I'm like, this is next level shit, right?
Yeah, no, I love that kind of layouts like that.
So, are you okay? So, do you believe in afterlife? Was there anything after that besides Commander Rao?
No, actually, Commander Rao was the next thing I did right after that.
Okay, so let's hear the story about Commander Rao. Oh, that's obviously everybody. That's the book we're here to really talk about, coming out in November from Scout Comics, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, what's the story of that book?
Yeah, so Commander Rao is a one-shot. It's about a rogue commander on a warpath against a tyrannical baron. It's pretty much a very action-packed, cinematic kind of book. But there is, as with any story I write, there is a little bit of emotions behind it. So pretty much, we're trying to uncover why this rogue commander is after the baron. What does she want out of this confrontation? And that's just kind of the big mystery throughout the book that we will uncover. But in between, you will see a lot of really cool cinematic fight scenes and really cool lettering done by my friend Letter Squids. And it will be released November 3rd from Scout Comics. And by the time this video is out, I believe the order cutoff might have been passed, but you should still pre-order if you're interested.
Yes, I believe, yeah. Will be a day after the order cutoff. But
okay. Yeah.
So when I'm reading this book, I think the first thing, this is going to be a one-shot, right?
Yes.
And I like that you kept to the one shot because it's such a cool world, and I could see somebody just like going nuts and just doing everything. And it's this 12-issue series, and we got to do this and that. But they dropped me into this world for a one-shot story that I could tell was well thought out. I thought was impressive on its own.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So
sorry.
go ahead.
No, I didn't. I wasn't really gonna say much.
I was just gonna say or ask. I mean, with that thought in mind, is there more to come from this, or was this like the story you wanted to tell for this world, and then we'll move on to the next thing?
Yeah. So initially, when I planned the Kickstarter, I had only planned for a one-shot. Pretty much after Do You Believe in an Afterlife, I was looking at my comics portfolio and I realized I didn't have a lot of fight scenes, and I felt like I needed to beef up my comics portfolio with some more action storytelling. So when I made Commander Rao, I was just thinking this was kind of going to be a practice piece where I just practiced drawing fight scenes, which is why you have fight scenes for 90% of the book. But yeah, I wasn't really expecting it to get as far as it did, even with Scout. I'm grateful for it for sure, but it's all been just kind of like a whirlwind. Things are moving very fast. I do have follow-up stories in the Commander Rao universe. That the next one I'm working on right now that I'm just kind of keeping it secrets under still. It's called Project AWLY, and it's going to be a prequel story that focuses on the character of Julie in Commander Rao. So we only see her briefly in the book, but we're going to explore more about what happened to this Julie character and her relationship with Commander Rao, aka Casey Cormac, before, she became a cool commander and all that. And then after that, I have a couple more stories planned, but they're still kind of just in the pre-development phase at the moment. But I think in the future, I do want to continue Commander Rao, but they'll probably be in a similar one-shots kind of format, just because it's something that I like to play in, and I think it's when you're trying to work backwards from something, I think it's easier to just have like a drop-in, drop-out kind of format where you can just pick it up, have a good time, and put it down, rather than like trying to have a bunch of continuity that you fill in with like 10 years of world building crammed into a miniseries. So that's my thinking.
Yeah, I mean, as a comics fan, obviously, I'm sure you feel similar, but I love the continuity. I love having these giant worlds. I love jumping into the Marvel universe and so on. At the same time, there's something special about a one-shot book that's just like, here's the story, and it's and we're done here. I've been getting more and more into that. Actually, like Vertigo in the late '90s did a ton of these that I didn't know about.
Oh wow, I didn't know either.
So yeah, and all the names you'd think from Vertigo in the '90s did them too, and they were like books you've never heard of, and it's interesting because you can tell someone who can get a story and it's the same for someone who can do an anthology book and get a story in 4 pages or 8 pages or whatever, but someone who can do a full story in just one issue is a craft in itself.
Yeah. I was actually in one of my favorite writers, Ryan K. Lindsay. He wrote Eternal and he wrote She, and they were both like I like one shots in the graphic novella format. They were about 48 pages each, but they were so good, and I love that he just managed to get so much world building done in like a short amount of pages. And I think that's one of the things that really inspired me when making Commander Rao, is that a comic doesn't need to necessarily be very long in order to have an impact.
Yeah, and you can tell when a writer spends a lot of time on its world building, even if, like you said, it's just one issue, because just when you jump into it, you can tell this is a world that's lived in and that things are happening out. Like, yeah, we're focused on Commander Rao, but like there's something going on outside too.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool feeling when you know that somebody put in the time and the effort to take care of that.
Oh, thank you.
So you mentioned one name there. What are some other influences you have in the industry?
So Ryan K. Lindsay, J.H. Williams, who drew the Batwoman comics. I am a big fan of Terry Moore. Strangers in Paradise is pretty much my favorite comic of all time. I like almost follow all of his stuff religiously. Other comic people I love, I really, really like Claire Rowe's art. When I think she did like Wonder Woman. I want to say she did some. I think she drew like some Captain Marvel for a bit, and she drew like a bunch of indie stuff. But she's really great at drawing very clean lines and very almost like anatomical lines. So when I was like first getting into art, her line art was so easy to study from because it was just like all simplified forms. And I really love that. And a lot of my other influences actually come from a lot of fan artists on Tumblr. Because in my youth, I like to browse Tumblr, and I was really into fandom and all that stuff. So there's an artist called Banished Shadow. They also do comics. I think they did a comic called Talon, which was kickstarted last year. But she does like a lot of badass buff women in armors and swords and all that. And her art is so cool. One of my greatest influences. Another one is, I don't know the real name, but they go by Marceline2174 online, and they draw a lot of Mass Effect fan art. Another one of my favorite artists. And there's a webtoon artist, Exploded Kid, or I think her real name's like Lysandra, but she draws the comic Covenant, and I also very, very much love her art very much.
So, I want to jump in this topic, and please let me know if at any point I push a boundary I shouldn't or whatever. But something I noticed in both of your books is that the lead characters are both gay.
Yes.
So I think it's safe to say, are you also
yes,
queer?
I am gay, yes.
Okay. So as somebody that's queer in this industry, how important was it to you that your characters, your books represent that lifestyle, or that, however you want to put it?
To be honest, I think it just kind of comes naturally to me. Like when I first make a character, I'm just like, yeah, they're gay, and it just, I don't know. I think it's just what I like to write and what I like to read. So it's just, I don't know. It's not, I don't, like when I think about it, I don't think of it like I need to make this person queer or some other thing because of representation. I think it's just like I do it because I want to, because it's what I like to read and draw and write. Yeah.
See, I like hearing that because that's always how I feel when I'm writing something. Is that a part of me is in that character usually,
Yeah.
and so I think all of my stories are about a straight male. So, because that's just who I am, and that's the part of me's in there. So I'm always just interested in people from different backgrounds and how they approach that idea. Because I don't know, I think it's important that more people of different varieties get into the different arts and express themselves, but also how they do that and how it comes about. I'm just have an interest in.
No, absolutely. And like I definitely think it is important to have representation. At the same time, my own writing motto is that I mostly write the books I want to write for myself, which is just kind of what I do. Yeah.
I feel that's how most writers go.
Yeah.
From my experience, I feel like that's how most writers do it. Like like I made this book because I wanted it to exist, because that was something I wanted to do,
Yeah.
and that's
I
that's
don't
why I've always felt that getting different people into the industry is more important than pushing out the whatever diversity you're looking for. Because you wouldn't want me to tell the great gay love story because I'm probably gonna fuck it up.
I think there's ways to do it with tact. To be honest, I'm not really well versed into the hows and the process and the a lot of the I guess systemic things that we have to consider when it comes to writing something like that. It's always something that I want to educate myself on more in case something it does come up. We have to write about something that I'm not very, well versed in. But I do agree. I think having more just diverse creators in general is going to create a more healthy environment for the comics industry and just create, a better sense of representation overall.
And what, in my opinion, is most important is better stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're gonna have more people telling more stories, and
yeah, absolutely.
And I think that at the end of the day is what really matters. So, Commander Rao, coming out from Scout, how have you enjoyed your time working with Scout?
So I've had a pretty good time right now. Everybody at Scout has been really helpful and really nice to me. One of the co-publishers at Scout, Charlie Stickney, he has been an immense help. He's pretty much almost kind of like my mentor throughout this whole publishing process, because obviously this is my first ever published book through Diamond and everything. Safe to say I don't really know what I'm doing. So I feel like it's definitely been a huge learning process. Colleen, my editor at Scout, has been very helpful. Andrea, another editor at Scout, also very helpful. And yeah, things have been pretty chill. It's been good so far.
Charlie's been one of my favorite comics minds to just pick apart and sit down and talk to.
He's incredible. He does so much. I don't know how he has the time to manage Scout and write amazing comics, but he's just incredible mind.
Well, cool. So, Commander Rao, we're gonna have that out November 3rd, right?
Yes, from what I
okay. So everybody can go ask their local comic shops to make sure they get that in. Is it final order cutoff for October 3rd?
I believe so. That is what I've seen.
Still, go hound your local comic shop. Tell them you want that book in. They'll find a way to get it for you.
Yes.
So, Fel, if people want to follow you further, what's the best place to send them?
So I'm most active on Twitter. You can find me at felhound_. I am also on Instagram. I believe that's fel.hound. And I generally that is where I'm most active in those two social medias. I also have a Tumblr. I think if you Google Felhound Tumblr, you'll probably find it. But yeah, Twitter is probably the best place to, if you want to like interact or see what I'm up to, because I should probably not be on Twitter as much, to be honest.
None of us should.
I mean, honestly, my wrist injury has been kind of helping with that because I can't scroll or type that much anymore. So I actually have to go outside and spend time with family and do important things.
Well, everybody, if you check the show notes down below, I'll have links to Fel's ArtStation page as well as the previews page for Captain Rao. And if I can find it on Scout's website, I'll have that one as well. So make sure to check those out so you can try to find a copy of the book, whether it's print, digital, or whatever, and check out the ArtStation because there are preview pages on there for both Do You Believe in Afterlife and Commander Rao on there.
Yes.
So, Fel, thanks so much for being on. Hopefully we'll get to do this again sometime.
Absolutely. I plan to make more comics and hopefully plan to talk about those comics as well.
Awesome.